Thank you very much. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Good morning, everybody. It's a pleasure to join you today in these difficult circumstances. Of course, today we are talking about the designation that just happened yesterday by the US administration, the Trump administration, to designate specific Muslim Brotherhood-linked entities, namely that of Egypt, Jordan, and Lebanon, as terrorist organization. This has been in the works for years, probably over a decade, that some people have been pushing for it, and namely the Egyptian government, the Israeli government, and the UAE government. And of course, they have powerful lobbies in Washington, D.C. They've been pushing for this for years, and it finally happened yesterday. On the good side, it is not a global designation of the Muslim Brotherhood, which means that it does not designate the entire Muslim Brotherhood groups or all of the Muslim Brotherhood groups, but it only targets these three branches of the Muslim Brotherhood. That's on the good side because the people who are behind it actually want the entire Muslim Brotherhood to be designated as a terrorist organization. On the negative side, however, the administration has said yesterday, signaled that this is only a first step or a first opening step, which means that there is a possibility that other chapters of the Muslim Brotherhood in the future will be designated also as terrorist organizations. This could be just the opening step, and that there could be further steps in the future. I believe that this is very counterproductive to U.S. interests, that this will harm U.S. interests in the region and in the Muslim world in general. I believe it will undermine democratic values and principles in the Muslim world, and specifically in the Middle East and North Africa. And it risks also causing significant harm to civil liberties at home here in the US for Muslim Americans. So why do I believe that this is against democracy and against democratic values? Because you can, in counterterrorism, you should not use counterterrorism to designate entire movements or entire parties, tens of thousands of people or millions of people as terrorists. This is only done in oppressive regimes such as Egypt and many others in the Arab world, to basically silence the opposition and to designate, take out entire political parties from the political process. So this, if you exclude the largest or one of the largest political and social movement in any Arab country, such as Egypt or Jordan or Lebanon in this case, then clearly it's the kiss of death for democracy. You cannot build a real democracy in any country while also excluding one of the largest political movements or political parties. That will only encourage the regime to become more oppressive, to become more repressive, and to target other people as they have been doing for years. So security is important. Of course, there is a way to fight terrorism, but blanket designation like this are, I think, very counterproductive. They are not helpful. If there are people in these parties or these movements who have been involved in violent acts or terrorism, they should be targeted as individuals and not as entire political movements with probably millions of followers. So this idea, unfortunately, is now the policy of the Trump administration. We know that the Trump administration doesn't really care about democracy, that Trump has described Sisi as his favorite dictator while hugging him, on TV. He designated him as a dictator, but also as his favorite dictator. We have to remind our policymakers in Washington and in the world that dictatorship is not the solution. Dictatorship doesn't provide real stability, doesn't solve real problems. It just hides them under the carpet or under the rug and until they explode. Because dictatorship creates more violence, more extremism, and more instability. So we think that this is very counterproductive because it will hurt the chances for democracy in the region, and therefore it will make the region a lot more unstable, and it will create more violence and more terrorism, not less violence. So the lessons from the last decades is that you cannot repress these political movements because they are popular, they have millions of followers, they have not disappeared under repression, whether in Egypt for the last 60 or 70 years, in Algeria, in more than a decade or 2 decades of repression, in Tunisia, in many countries. These movements tend to continue to exist, and sometimes they become even more popular because of repression, because they gain more sympathy from the people. So banning non-violent political opposition increases instability and does not provide security. We have noted that in the last 20 years or more, political Islamic movements, including the Muslim Brotherhood, have accepted democracy as the rule of the game and have rejected violence and terrorism in hundreds of statements, and that has been the official position of these Islamic movements, and therefore they have been allowed to participate in elections, they have been allowed to enter parliament, sometimes to form governments, especially after the Arab Spring, but even before the Arab Spring, including in Egypt. The Muslim Brotherhood were in parliament. The Muslim Brotherhood had participated in elections in Egypt, in Jordan, in Tunisia, in many countries, Islamic parties in general, not just Muslim Brotherhood, in Morocco, in Algeria, and so on. So this political exclusion causes instability, dictatorship leads to extremism and violence. These are the main points that we have to really highlight and explain to policymakers here in Washington and in Europe, because frankly, we see similar trends in Europe, and it is possible that some European countries will follow the lead and do the same thing in the next months or years. So we need to explain really that dictatorship is not the solution, and political exclusion does not cause stability. It creates more instability and more problems for the region. So this hurts U.S. interests. This is not in the U.S. interests to partner with oppressive regimes on the world stage. I believe that U.S. interests are better served by defending freedom, by defending human rights, by defending democracy, and that this is what really will create real peace and stability and economic prosperity. What I want to finish in 2 minutes, basically to say that in the region, this will destabilize the region. This will create more problems. This will not serve the U.S. interests because it will feed more extremism and anti-American narratives and anti-American feelings across the region. So this will be, in my opinion, very harmful to U.S. interests. Also, it will threaten domestic civil liberties here at home in the United States, because even though there is no Muslim organization, I mean, no Muslim Brotherhood organization exists in the US, it's a very vague label. It can be used to attack anybody and any organization, guilt by association. There is no way to prove that you are a member of the Muslim Brotherhood or that you are not a member of the Muslim Brotherhood. So if you defend Muslim rights, if you defend the Muslim values in the United States, this will have a very chilling effect on civic and religious life here in America, especially for American Muslims. We are, of course, very concerned about Muslim organizations such as CARE, but possibly others. CARE has already been labeled as a terrorist organization in Texas and Florida. They are now in court. The advantage in the United States is, of course, we have the possibility to go to the American court system to defend our civil liberties. But again, that takes years. It is a long process. It doesn't show results immediately. To conclude, counterterrorism tools must be narrowly defined and must be evidence-based. If you accused somebody or even an organization to be terrorist, you have to prove. It has to be very narrow. You have to be specific about who you're accusing, the people who you are accusing of being involved in terrorism, and you have to provide the evidence for that. You cannot just accuse millions of people without providing any evidence. Dissent against oppressive regimes is not terrorism, is not violence. It is a right that has to be respected. Democracy must be inclusive, must include everybody, and democracy is the only way to prosper and the only way to provide real stability in the Middle East and North Africa. Thank you very much.